We all remember Ivanchuk's reaction after losing a blitz game to Daniel NARODITSKY at the last World Championship in New York. But the game itself was fascinating also. Let's take a look. Ivanchuk, the game with the move d4, knight f6, c4, g6, f3, preparing the move e4, bishop g7, e4, d6, and we have King's Indian defense. Developing the bishop on e3 for Ivanchuk, short castle, knight develops on c3, very typical position and ideas for King's Indian opening. White controls the center of the board, and black has a position where it seems passive, but eventually they will start attacking white center and potentially white king on the king side of the board. a6, bishop d3, and knight goes to d7, exactly with the idea to open up the move f5. Knight goes to e2, c5, that's another typical idea in King's Indian openings, to attack white center. d5, also a move that's used in these positions for white. They control center, they gain space, but allow black to put their knight on a nice square on e5, and Naroditsky does exactly that. a4, preventing any ideas of the move b5. Knight goes to d7, b3, and here we can see that the light square bishop on d3 is really a bad piece for white. It's surrounded by white pawns and really looks pretty sad on this square d3, but still Naroditsky exchanges the good knight for this bishop, mostly because he has another knight that can go to square e5, and also now the bishop on g7 can operate on this diagonal freely. f5, another typical instructive move for black to start attacking white center. Rook goes to d1, the move neither me nor the engines can explain, because it's really, the file is closed. b5, sacrificing the pawn for black, and after those exchanges, now black has an open file for the rook, and those pawns, although are, one of them is extra, but they're pretty weak, double pawns for white. Naroditsky puts his knight on e5, attacking the queen. Ivanchuk moves the queen away to c2, exchange of the pawns on a square e4, and Naroditsky checks the opponent with the move queen a5 check. Knight goes to c3, blocking the check, and here Naroditsky sacrifices a knight. He takes the pawn on f3, and after taking it with the rook, taking the pawn with the rook, black's position is absolutely great, with every piece working at full strength. White position is really problematic because the knight on c3 is pinned, the bishop on e3 is under attack, and here Ivanchuk plays very awkward move, king d2. He protects the bishop with the king, but the best move for white was actually king e2 in this position. And the reason king e2 is better, simply because, first of all, it still accomplishes the idea of protecting the bishop. It attacks the rook on f3, and also it unpins the knight on c3. Probably Ivanchuk was scared maybe of the move bishop g4, but white would have been on time to play rook a1, and it would have been an equal position. There is no real threat of discovery checks as nothing would be under attack. So king d2 was very awkward again, looking move in this position, and black could win this position with the move queen b4. Queen b4 with the threat to take the knight. Let's take a look at this variation actually. Let's say rook a1, bishop takes c3, and here you can take it with the knight or with the queen. If white takes with the queen, then actually black would take the knight on e4, sacrifice their rook on a8, check it from d5, and after kings go away, they will take the rook on a8. So after this nice geometrical idea, they would have two extra pawns, but one of them is doubled, and totally winning position. So that was one variation. The other variation after bishop takes c3, if knight takes c3, then a sacrifice of the rook on e3, and then after, let's say, a rook takes a8, queen d4 check, and checkmate would be soon here. After these moves, white will lose a queen, and if king takes the rook on e3, queen d4 check, king goes away to f3, the bishop is joining the attack, and let's say king goes to g2. Here's the sacrifice of the bishop. Very nice variations, by the way, here. King takes f3, rook is joining the attack from f8, and let's say king g2, queen g4 checkmate. So all of this was very difficult to see, I guess, with so little time left on the clock for Naroditsky. So he played the move bishop d4. And that was a mistake, and now white is winning already. White is winning because they have the move rook a1, and Ivanchuk finds it. Rook a1, pinning the queen to the rook. So in this position, bishop takes on e3 with a check, king goes to e2, now the queen is under attack and the rook is under attack. Bishop goes to g4, protecting the rook, but giving up the queen on a5. Ivanchuk takes the queen on a5. After rook takes a5, he goes king d3, escaping this discovery check, but getting into the other discovery check, and bishop goes to d4 with the check. King goes to a square of c4. That's pretty much the only square the king can go. And now we can see already some checkmate ideas for black, because the white king really is smothered there with its own pieces. Naroditsky plays bishop f5, pinning the knight to the queen. Queen goes away to d2. Naroditsky takes the knight on c3. Knight takes c3. In this position is totally winning for white, but black continues to create some threats, some ideas, some confusion, because let's remember, it's a blitz game. Ivanchuk is under pressure, time pressure, as well as Naroditsky, but Naroditsky is 30 years younger and a much better blitz player than Ivanchuk. He goes e5, rook e1, and after rook f4 check, white have no moves except for giving back the queen. Queen takes f4, e takes f4, but this position is totally winning for white also. And the winning move was knight e4, attacking the pawn on d6, which cannot be really protected. Instead, Ivanchuk plays that move, attacking that pawn, exchange of the light pieces on the square e4. This rook ending is completely winning for Ivanchuk because of this passing pawn b. With the help of the queen, of the king, it will go and promote to the square b8. g5, b6, your passing pawn has to move. The only move is rook a8. The king is joining the action with king b5, f3, and here it's important not to allow the move f2 because the pawn cannot be stopped. So rook e1 is the best move to make sure that the promotion square on f1 is covered by the rook. Naroditsky plays g4. You have to give him credit in an absolutely losing position. He continues to create some threats, some ideas, and makes Ivanchuk think and makes Ivanchuk play maybe out of his element in the last seconds of the game. King c6 is obvious, h5. And now the easiest way to win this was the move b7. I'm not sure why Ivanchuk didn't play that, and instead took the pawn at d6. Not that it matters, but this way the winning is a little more difficult. Rook goes to f8, b7, h4. Here's one of the critical, again, moments of the game where Ivanchuk puts the rook on the wrong square. He puts it on the square g1. Instead, he had to put it on the square f1. And that's totally winning because after g3 exchange of the pawns, he can just take this pawn on f3. And if Naroditsky takes it back, then there is a queen with a check and white is winning. So instead, Ivanchuk places the rook on the square g1. And that's a mistake because after f2, actually, let me take it back. This position is actually winning for black again. So you see, this game was going back and forth on almost every move at the end of the game. This is winning for black, and they had to play g3. g3, and after these moves, actually, sorry, again, you see, need to be very careful. In this position, black had to play f2. Very difficult to find all this exact, precise moves when you have 4 seconds remaining on the clock. But after f2, rook f1, and h take g3, one of those pawns will queen, and black will win the game. Instead, black played f2, and that's a mistake, and now white is winning this game. After rook takes g4 with a check, king goes to h7, and here, with 5 seconds still go on the clock, Ivanchuk takes the pawn on h4, which seems like a very logical move with a check, but in reality, that's again a losing. And the winning move was promotion to a queen on b8. Rook will take on b8, and now check, king goes away, rook f4, this pawn is stopped, and the pawn from d5 will easily queen. So that was the winning combination with the move b8. Instead, Ivanchuk takes the pawn on h4 with a check, and now he's losing because king goes to g6, and now the tragedy happened because Ivanchuk didn't manage to make the next move on time. So he lost on time. He did make this move, but his time expired, and we saw the reaction of Ivanchuk crying after the game. But to be honest, this position is already lost for him anyway, because after rook g4 check, the move he wanted to make, king just goes to f5, and white cannot stop the f pawn from promotion. So let's say rook g7, queen, and white are not on time to promote on b8 because b8 is covered by the rook. Very fascinating game. Everything was under pressure. It's a world championship, it's blitz, time pressure, world championship pressure. And this was the end of this game, and Naroditsky managed to win, which is a good lesson. Always fight till the end. Make sure that to create all sorts of problems for your opponent, even if you are losing. Just make the other side work to win the game. And maybe they will make a mistake, as it happened in this particular game. Thank you for watching.